Hey y'all, thanks for stopping in. So the final arguments were heard yesterday in the Fani Willis hearing, and I got this one here from USA Today. Clear-cut lies. Fiery hearing over Fani Willis affair and Trump election case. Defense lawyers and prosecutors clashed over basic questions, ethics, and evidence Friday during final arguments in the hearing over whether Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis should be disqualified from Donald Trump's Georgia election fraud case for having an affair with her private lawyer. This is the RICO case. It's not just that she's accused of having an affair with a private lawyer that she hired on the case, who is Nathan Wade, which they both admitted on the stand that they were having a relationship. It turned into a scenario where they only became lovers essentially after Fani Willis hired Nathan Wade to be the prosecuting attorney in this case, which upon stepping back and looking at it kind of from a distance, I realized that that doesn't even matter. They could have just been friends, completely platonic, and the fact that she still took those trips with him as friends and has no documentation of actually paying him back, and a person from her position is supposed to document every single gift that she receives, that's already enough to me. Because when you look at it through the eyes of a person who's being prosecuted by these two, it absolutely looks like a conflict of interest. And as one of the attorneys pointed out during the closing arguments yesterday, that the appearance of conflict of interest is enough to disqualify. It has a precedent to remove Fani Willis or an individual from being allowed to prosecute a case. So back to this story. After nearly 2 hours of which defense attorneys accused Willis of abusing her power, lying on disclosure forms, and concealing a blatant conflict of interest, the district attorney's office fought back, claiming that defense witnesses were unreliable and that there were no legal grounds to remove the prosecutor. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. It's desperate, Prosecutor Adam Abadi said. It's a desperate attempt to remove a prosecutor from a case for absolutely no reason, Your Honor, other than harassment and embarrassment. Willis took a seat in the courtroom during the prosecution's presentation. Wade was also present. It was just funny because they totally contradicted themselves. And Abadi only had one case. You know, they refer to cases in the past that set the precedent. And I've been trying to pay attention to the actual court case live as it happens. And they take quite a while. And it's hard for me to just sit there and do nothing when I have this long list of things to do and the hot summer coming up in the next couple months. So I was outside working in the yard doing things like that while I listened. So, you know, you don't get 100% of the experience because you're not watching, but still. So that's why I didn't actually put out a video yesterday. I was working on that capacity. Lawyers for the former president and other defendants have argued that Willis's romance with prosecutor Nathan Wade created a conflict of interest, and that she improperly benefited from the relationship when he paid for vacations they took together using some of the more than $650,000 he has made from just this case alone. Willis and Wade have strenuously denied that she improperly benefited and say their relationship began months after she hired him to oversee the investigation into whether Trump and associates broke the law in conspiring to overturn Joe Biden's narrow 2020 victory in the state. Willis called the allegations lies in surprise testimony last month. "You think I'm on trial?" Willis said from the witness stand on February 15th. "These people are on trial for trying to steal an election in 2020. She added, gesturing to the defense table, "I'm not on trial, no matter how hard you try to put me on trial." Well, the ironic thing was, she was literally on trial. That's the whole reason why she was sitting on the witness stand, was in defense of herself to retain her position as the prosecuting district attorney in the Trump election case. So, yeah, you're on trial. But anyways, she's smart. Attorneys for the Trump campaign official Michael Roman, the former president, and others charged in the case have worked to introduce evidence that they say demonstrates that Willis and Wade, contrary to their sworn statements, were in a relationship before she hired him to oversee the election prosecution. Okay, so there is some relevancy in that, but still, like I was saying, it doesn't really matter if they were in the relationship before or after. The fact is they were going on the trips together and she was receiving the benefits and not reporting it. But the part that I forgot to consider is that they made sworn statements, and that those sworn statements could be them committing perjury. And if they committed perjury, then that makes this all that more worse for Fani Willis and Nathan Wade, as I believe that the judge will rule that they're going to be removed from the case, and I think that they will be shortly disbarred afterwards. But that's just my opinion. Let's continue. Fulton County Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee said he will rule in the next 2 weeks over whether to disqualify Willis, Wade, and potentially the rest of the DA's office. Defense lawyers for Trump and some of the 14 remaining defendants also have petitioned McAfee to dismiss the case entirely on the grounds it is irrevocably tainted by Willis's alleged conflict of interest. So McAfee closed the hearing Friday saying he was grappling with several legal issues and factual disputes. And that's something that I thought was kind of interesting. The fact that he said it could take him up to 2 weeks was interesting enough. Kind of surprised me because I thought he went into this case ready to make a judgment. So I don't know if that means that he saw something that might have changed his mind. But I was watching Benny Johnson the other day, and he had a good point that maybe Judge McAfee was ready to dismiss all these charges and allow Fani Willis to continue, but after having it laid out to him the way that it was by these Trump lawyers, he was forced to reconsider, and maybe that's what he's doing now. But I don't know. I do find it curious that it could take him up to 2 weeks, and it just makes me wonder what it is that he feels like he needs to look for more into. There are several issues to sort through, several factual determinations that I have to make, and those aren't the ones I can make at this moment. McAfee said after 3 hours of forceful submissions by both sides, I will be taking the time to make sure that I give this case the full consideration it's due. I hope to have an answer for everyone within the next 2 weeks, he concluded. And so, yeah, I mean, the 2 weeks thing, it puzzled me. I think it got a lot of people. But I can and do appreciate the fact that, understanding the magnitude of this case, that he is going to give it proper thought and consideration. But let's continue looking into more of what happened. Prosecutor Adam Abadi ridiculed defense arguments that Fulton County DA Fani Willis hired Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade to benefit financially from the relationship. Abadi noted that Willis didn't hire Wade to work on other racketeering cases she was prosecuting. She secured indictments against 19 defendants in the Donald Trump election racketeering case rather than 39 in special grand jury had Adam Abadi argued that Nathan Wade's former divorce lawyer Terrence Bradley failed to support defense claims that he could contradict Willis and Wade's testimony based on personal experience. Abadi said Bradley, who was previously described by the judge as a star witness, testified 15 times that he didn't have personal first-hand knowledge about Willis and Wade's romantic relationship. So the thing about that was he was playing word games. He's an attorney himself, and basically he was saying in his mind, in my opinion at least, is what it seemed like to me, that he's like, I've never seen him actually engaged in a romantic relationship. So therefore, I can't actually say when or if it existed and began, right? Thankfully, I don't believe it fooled anybody, but Abadi also suggested the defense oversold Bradley's potential testimony only to be let down when he took the stand. Abadi pointed out a text message by the defense asking Bradley whether he thought Willis and Wade's relationship started before she hired him, which Bradley responded absolutely. The question in itself involves speculation, Abadi said. He doesn't provide any context as to how he knows, and in these text messages and through his testimony in this court, the source of this information was unclear, Abadi said. Abadi did note one conversation Bradley testified to involving himself and Wade, but argued the conversation never happened. If it had, the defense would have confronted Wade about it when he testified, Abadi argued. The thing about that is, and again, in my mind, this guy's testimony is only necessary in proving that Fani Willis and Nathan Wade perjured themselves by lying that they only began dating after she hired him in this Trump case. It shouldn't be necessary to the judge when he makes his decision because, like I said, if Fani Willis and Nathan Wade were friends and she still took those gifts, she still created the conflict of interest and certainly the appearance of a conflict of interest. And then Trump's lawyer Harry McDougal weighed in, who represents Trump co-defendant and former Justice Department official Jeffrey Clark. He noted the prosecutors made several objections to the testimony of Terrence Bradley, who is Nathan Wade's divorce attorney, based on the argument that the testimony was protected by attorney-client privilege. But McDougal noted the privilege at issue belongs to Wade as Bradley's former client, rather than to state prosecuting team. That shows, he argued, that the district attorney's office is serving Willis and Wade's personal interest rather than justice. It is a continuation of the wrongful pattern of concealment and cover-up that they've engaged in since the beginning. But now they've enlisted in the entire office to the enterprise, McDougal said. This office is a global laughingstock because of their conduct. And that's true, because essentially what he's saying is that the district attorney was objecting to things when Bradley was on the witness stand, and it wasn't their position or place to object necessarily. It was also ruled after a one-on-one meeting with the judge, by the judge, that anything that had to do with Nathan Wade and Fani Willis, their relationship, wasn't covered in their attorney-client privilege. That's why Terrence Bradley was ordered to retake the stand. Also, Harry McDougal accused District Attorney Fani Willis of violating her professional ethics as a lawyer at least 6 different ways. In one example, McDougal said Willis didn't declare the gift she got from Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade, which she contends she repaid in cash. There's no boyfriend exception, McDougal said. That's an actual conflict of interest between her legal duty of disclosure, her legal duty of candor as a prosecutor, and her private and personal interest in concealing the relationship, concealing the gifts, and keeping gravy train rolling as long as possible. In another example, McDougal also criticized Willis for threatening Wade's wife with criminal charges by arguing that allegations in their divorce case were hampering the investigations of Trump. There's no sugarcoating it, McDougal said. She abused her power, she abused her position to threaten her boyfriend's wife with criminal prosecution to gain advantage for herself and her boyfriend. Richard Rice, a lawyer on the Trump side, accused Fani Willis of personally benefiting from the investigation into Trump through a romance with Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade. Wade, who Willis hired for the case, paid at least $17,095 toward the relationship, Rice said, citing documents and referring to vacations the two took together. The figure doesn't include dinners and day trips, Rice said. During the pendency of the investigation of this case, Mr. Wade and Miss Willis basically lived Robin Leach's lifestyle of the rich and famous, Rice said. They did this riding on the backs of defendants in the case, defunding the taxpayers of Fulton County and the state of Georgia. Wade and Willis acknowledged traveling to Belize, Aruba, and California, but said she repaid him in cash. Rice also cited 2,000 calls and nearly 9,800 texts between Wade and Willis during the first 11 months of 2021 before he was contracted as the special prosecutor. I don't even think love-struck teenagers communicate that much, Rice said. That was pretty funny. I remember when he said that. Trump lawyer Steven Sadow argued the cell phone records indicated that Willis and Wade gave untruthful testimony about when their romantic relationship started. He said the record suggests there were 35 or more occasions when Wade was in the vicinity of where Willis was staying prior to when the two prosecutors testified the relationship started. The records reflect 2 occasions when Wade appeared to spend the night at the apartment, Sadow added. He noted the prosecuting team may not accept that Wade stayed that night. Sadow argued that if the judge concludes there were ethical violations and that there is significant concern about the truthfulness of Willis and Wade's testimony, they should be disqualified. Prosecutors are held to a higher standard, Sadow said. They're the ones that are supposed to be seeking justice, end quote. And I agree. I mean, imagine being prosecuted by Fani Willis in the last couple, imagine being one of the people that struck a plea deal or was prosecuted by Fani Willis, and now you're coming to find out that she was so corrupt, or being accused of it, what seemingly so corrupt, right? Do you call your attorney up and say, hey, I think we need to revisit my case here. Looks like the prosecutor, the district attorney, was not on the up and up. I believe so, and that was one of the judge's questions and concerns to a Trump lawyer at one point. Hopefully we'll come across that here shortly. Sadow also said Robin Yurdy, a friend of Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis and Terrence Bradley, Nathan Wade's former divorce lawyer, had each said romantic relationship between Willis and Wade began before they were hired to lead the Trump prosecution in November of 2021. That meant Willis and Wade both lied under oath. I suggest they were clear-cut lies, Sadow said. Willis and Wade have said Yurdi and Bradley are wrong. But that's one thing that, you do have in that instance that's not being mentioned, and maybe it will come forward. But Robin Yurdi was one of the first witnesses in this case, and she has her story that they were together beforehand. And then Terrence Bradley gets up on there, and essentially his text messages corroborate what Miss Yurdi's testimony was. You either have Yurdi and Bradley lying, or Willis and Wade lying, or all four. And it's probably all four. Who knows, right? It could be. But Fulton County Superior Judge Scott McAfee asked Sadow what remedy could be imposed. Where in the law do we find the remedy for the untruthful statement? McAfee asked. Sadow cited 2 cases where judges found ethical violations by defense lawyers and disqualified them from cases. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, Sadow said. If defense counsel can be kicked off a case because of their ethical violations, I suggest the same thing can happen for prosecutors when the ethical violations deal with truthfulness, candor to the court. Said in doing the math on what Wade actually paid for and what Wade and Willis testified she paid back in cash for their vacations, $9,247 is the amount of money they cannot account for in their testimony. That was a personal benefit Willis received through prosecuting the case with Wade on the prosecuting team, he argued. Judge McAfee asked Merchant whether a personal benefit needed to be significant to justify disqualifying a prosecutor. Merchant replied that a $6 benefit would be enough, though he later conceded giving a fellow prosecutor a pack of gum might not fit the bill. In this case, however, there is an appearance of a conflict and that this is enough, Merchant said. They knew it was wrong, they hid it, and even when they were called out on it, they created an excuse for it by saying it happened after the fact, he said. Referencing Willis and Wade's claim that their romantic relationship started after Wade was hired to work on the case. I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap up there. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next one.